Welcome to Spiritually Raw. We expose and explore controversial truths, myths, and theories surrounding the spirit world. Guests includes investigators, debunkers, and skeptics of the supernatural, unexplained, and flat-out unimaginable. Content discussed on this show is not necessarily the opinion of the cast of Spiritually Raw, and topics quite often are for mature audiences only. This show is not intended to replace any medical, financial, or legal advice and is for entertainment purposes only. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. Welcome everybody to Spiritually Raw. How are you? I hope you're having a fantastic day today. Okay, this is such a cool topic. The mysteries of the inner earth. I love this one, aka Argartha. And look, I don't think there's anybody else better that can explain this other than our soul brother Kaedrich over here, who has just been here a couple of times here.
Father Wisdom,
Father Wisdom. Father Wisdom. That's what we call the show, Father Wisdom. Okay with that, right, Father Wisdom?
Thank you. It's great to be here, and I love that moniker. I think it's great.
Father Wisdom it is. Okay, I love it. Okay, so you heard that first on Spiritually Raw. Okay, Kaedrich Olsen, you can find out more about him at kaedrich.com. All of his links will be in the description below. And check out past episodes he has done here, actually on Gnostic TV now. We hope you're enjoying that experience with a lot of other people on there. So, yeah,
if this is your first time hearing about Kaedrich,
Father Wisdom.
Kaedrich, I apologize, Father Wisdom. Let me first tell you a little bit about who he is. Kaedrich Olsen, he's a paranormal expert, internationally renowned author, speaker, teacher with over 30 years experience guiding people through their supernatural and spiritual concerns. Kaedrich has been on Coast to Coast. He probably looks very familiar. I'm sure you've seen him on Gaia. He's got awesome topics in this series, and it's really, really good stuff. He's also an accomplished leader in the Nordic spiritual community. He's the author of Ruins for Transformation. You can check out all of his links. They'll be in the show description, but you can also go to kaedrich.com. And if you haven't checked out the past shows, we most recently did was Dwarka, the Lost Kingdom of Krishna. The links will be in the description. And back probably almost 2 years ago, the collective unconscious. Do you even remember that one, Kaedrich?
Oh, I got a terrible. No, one of my favorite subjects is talking about the collective unconscious.
Yeah, it was a really, really good one. And we all talked about dimensions and realities, and that link will also be in the show description.
So welcome back, my brother. It's good to see you again. And thank you again for your service that you're doing to just help us kind of just at least navigate these waters, so I appreciate that. So the hollow earth, let's call it, the inner earth, however you want to do it, is it, from what you understand, is it what we are in, and is it hollow in there, or is there actual life inside? If we were to drill deep enough, is there life there, and what would that even look like?
That's a fascinating question, because there are two differing opinions. Well, three if you take in the skepticism, but there are two different opinions on hollow earth. The original was that the earth is basically an empty sphere, that inside this empty sphere is a new mini sun, and that mini sun is radiating the light on the inner surface of the earth, where we're, convex on the outside of the planet, that their world would be concave lit by this interior sun. And the options to getting to this interior world was that there were entrance places at the poles, the North and the South Pole, which there have been some flyovers in the Arctic and Antarctic regions to suggest that there might be something like that. But that theory is no longer the prevailing one. The current prevailing theory is the honeycomb earth idea, meaning that there are scattered pockets, caverns, and interconnected tunnel systems between these big underground caverns. And mind you, some of the reports of these underground caverns is that they're miles in diameter, miles wide, enough to house cities inside these underground little pockets all over the place. That seems to be the most current theory, and people from the secret space programs, people who have been in the know, and even, interestingly enough, ancient reports seem to align better, that it's not a concave system underneath, but that there are these myriad of pockets all over the place with entrances all over the world to get to these underground caverns.
Is it like a Russian doll theory of sorts, kind of thing like that? Like,
Not quite. They're still suggesting more like a honeycomb, that there's like these little pockets
yeah,
all over the place, but not that they're nestled inside of each other, that they're just scattered all over all under the crust and into the mantle.
So for quite a few years now, the underground tunnel system has been exposed. Many people believe it's very cabal-like or Luciferian agenda, very, very dark energies that are living under the Earth's surface. So who or what would be living in the Argotha or inner Earth? And is that separate from what we've heard about with the underground tunnels, which was the Luciferian agenda?
Yeah, there are definitely two different things going on. What you're referring to, the underground tunnel networks, are
Like the
connecting
dumbs, deep.
domes. Exactly.
Mhm.
They are part of the military industrial complex, where they're building great underground complexes. And there are reports from military personnel that they do encounter these underground civilizations that are already extant in some of these places. Sometimes the human-made tunnels will intersect with these other cultures' tunnels. Sometimes there'll be some interactions with it. And reports are that there are multiple types of beings under there. The Native Americans have legends of the ant people. We hear tales of reptilian type entities. But the Agarthan civilization that has been singled out more specifically, these seem to be advanced people, advanced, not necessarily human, but humanoid, but they could pass for human. That these may be the last remnants of the Lemurian Mu civilizations that around 12,800 years ago, when the Younger Dryas kicked in, would have hit the planet with flooding and freezing and all sorts of devastation. And to flee that devastation and the massive rise of sea levels, they went underground. And so we are seeing, more than likely, even the tales of Shambhala from Tibetan people, is that they are an advanced culture. The Hindu people say these are advanced people with advanced technology and high level spirituality. So it definitely differs from like the cabal or a Luciferian agenda, because these are high level, high advanced beings that have been reported to help humans in certain catastrophic moments.
Kaedrich, does that concept then of an advanced Lemurian Atlantic society, if you would, Atlantic society, does that then possibly exist in that inner world, if you would? Like they got this kind of stuff going on that we thought was history or the past, but it actually might be happening right now?
Exactly. That's exactly it. These ancient cultures retreated underground. We have numerous stories of that, from ancient Sumerian to even South American, that there were advanced cultures trying to flee the devastation, and they went underground and they built their cities and their entire culture underground, and occasionally will pop up once in a while to interact with us.
So when people say, okay, well, I'm from Lemurian descent, they very well quite be and just climb up in essence, right? I mean, and cohabitate here. That could literally be that, right?
Correct.
Wow.
How is it engineered? How is it actually created? How is it developed? What, from your father wisdom knowledge, what what is your perspective of how was this actually built?
My perspective of how it is actually built is, imagine that we're seeing the Younger Dryas devastation going on. They're flooding, freezing, massive sea level rise, electrical activity. That's one of the big things. Electrical activity all over the planet, just searing all sort of vegetation, all sort of plant life, everything just burning up like crazy. And these civilizations would be advanced enough to be able to scan below the surface to find, let's say, a pocket of open space underground, a big cavern, maybe 5 miles wide. And they move their technology into there, and they just start building their cities in that pocket. They have artificial light, so now they can sort of create an artificial sun type situation in there. They can regulate the temperature, they can regulate the air levels. They're growing their own food from this light. They basically terraformed their own little ecosystem inside a pocket underneath the ground, and thousands of people would have separated off of Mu Lemuria and inhabited various pockets that were connected through tunnels. And I believe that is the formation of the Agarthan civilization.
That makes sense.
So they are the ones then technically in this quote unquote, when people talk about like we live in a dome of sorts, you know what I mean? Or what do they call that thing? You know what I mean? What do they call that? It's the thing that they say is the ceiling
right.
of the earth when you fly up.
Firmament?
Yeah,
The
yeah, yeah,
firmament,
yeah, yeah. So
yes.
they're the ones that are really experiencing that more so then, right? In
Correct.
essence. Got it. Okay. So does the story of all that happening come from what they're experienced, not so much what we're experienced, that there is a firmament?
No, I do think that the concept of the firmament that we hear in biblical stories and, Bronze Age time period came from the people that did not have a solid understanding of science that we do today, and that they were using mythological constructs from what they understood to explain what they were experiencing.
So from your perspective, are you saying that you believe we have a firmament or we do not?
I don't think so. I think it's just air that gets thinner and thinner till we get out into space.
What a cool it's really great to just kind of maneuver through and just see what the possibilities of existence are. So people talk in terms of like elementals, fairies, elves, unicorns, if you would. Are those in a world, or are they in more of another dimension, if you would, that's experienced? Or is
that's a fun question, because the concept of Agartha and Shambhala, even Shangri-La, all cover that entire spectrum, because there are a lot of stories that talk about the Agarthans and the people that live in Shambhala, which people will say that Shambhala is the capital city of Agartha, or that the underground cities are called Shambhala, but that's the Tibetan term for it, where it seems like Agartha is more of the European term. They might be different cultures, they may be the same, but there are reports, because these are highly advanced spiritual beings, and the entrances are guarded by beings with supernatural powers, that there are these thoughts that they do exist in another realm, another layer of density. Maybe this is what we can think of as we are third density beings, that these may be fifth density beings existing within the physical, like a 3D realm. And so to the perceptions of people, again, mythological constructs in an attempt to understand their world, would have put tales of fairies or otherworldly beings in order to explain their encounters with fifth density. I don't know. I'm just posing a theory out there, a thought, that maybe this is where those stories come from.
What about, the planes that just seem to vanish from the air, or the boats that seem to get sucked into the Bermuda Triangle? Are those vortexes, are they coming from this inner earth energy?
Not likely. I hate to be the bubble burster.
Somebody has to do it.
But when we really look at the statistics of the Bermuda Triangle, not much spectacular is going on there. It's just tales that kind of gotten spun and curiosities created. But we see the Bermuda Triangle region is actually a pretty safe area compared to other parts of the world. And I'm not sure if the power sources used by the Agarthans would create those potential vortexes. I haven't been able to find a connection to that one. So I have to leave that as an I don't know.
Yeah, I got it. Hey, when people talk about the concept of a hell, and a lot of people just really fall on the sword for that one, are they talking about what they may have seen, or how they've understood an inner earth?
I did do some digging over the years of the concept of hell and the afterlife, and I'll share with you some of the pieces I put together. That way it gives us a good contrast to Agartha. There we go. You can't pronounce it today. Agartha. From my understanding, and of course I need a correction on this if I'm incorrect, because I am not a scholar of some of these ancient texts, but from what I understand, in the old Jewish text, the Hebrew Old Bible, that the place of eternal torment or whatever was called Sheol. But it wasn't really a place of eternal torment. It was actually the dumping grounds, the trash pit where they burned their trash. And if a person lived an ignoble life and they died an ignoble death, they weren't granted a sacred burial. Their body was burned in the trash heap.
True.
And so that led to these, eternal pits of flame, eternal fires, because Sheol got turned into hell in the Christian concept, where it became an eternal place of torment and eternal place of whatever going on, where you will be burning in lakes of fire. But it was just a modification of the old practice of burning ignoble deaths. And this got reinforced with volcanic activity, places where, like in Iceland, where there are great sulfur bouts coming out of the ground. It stinks, it's really awful smelling. And there are lakes of fire when we see the molten lava, and then people are relating the mythological constructs of Sheol and hell and go, oh my God, here it is. There's the sulfur, there's the burning, there's the lakes of fire, here's the pits of hell. It's underground, there we go. And plus, the underworld has always been a realm of the dead, because that's where we bury people. We bury people in the mounds, we put them underground. So the underworld has always been associated with the dead. And now you pair that up with an eternal place of torment, now you have the underworld. And that's where we kind of get, where our mythological constructs kind of diverge from what Agartha is and what we see there.
So does the civilization in the inner world, are they wanting us to, I mean, you know how like they say, like a lot of times you hear all these different theories of like, oh, well, they're just waiting for us to be ready. They're just waiting for us to be ready kind of stuff, right? So is that the same thing with them? Are they waiting for us to be ready before they show themselves as similarly as if you would the galactics were to wait for us to be ready, like a sandwich effect, like all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, they come from both sides. I mean, is it like, are they waiting for us to be ready, or they just want to be left alone?
I think it's a combination of all of that. That they're in their own world. They just kind of want to be separate from it. But as humanity starts to grow and evolve, and as our consciousness reaches a higher state of being, we have no choice, but we're going to start connecting and interacting. Plus, if we go back to the idea of the collective unconscious, they're here. They're within the field of Earth. They're in Gaia field. They are sharing consciousness with us at the unconscious level anyway. So they are in a way already connected to us. We're already there as a part of them. It's just more at our day-to-day level. We got to catch up. And as soon as we catch up, it's like, it's not that they're waiting for us or that they're trying to avoid us. It's just that they're there. And once we catch up, it'll be like, hey, cool, join the party. We're here.
Do we cause them havoc and agitation in it, that from the state of the pollution, if you would, just the impact we make on our surface of the earth, pollution, trash, whatever, you know what I mean? Do we cause them havoc? Does any of that seep into their world? Kind of like you living across someone and their roof starts leaking, and it's like, you're the neighbor on the, you know what I mean? Does it,
No, that's a fair question. I haven't heard that one yet. I haven't heard, but what I do know causes problems is like what we're talking about earlier, the tunnel system between the domes, that will definitely intersect with their groups that way. Plus nuclear bombs, nuclear technology, they're not thrilled with that, because that is causing devastation at a level that is upsetting to them. So of course they are part of the proponents of stopping nuclear weapons completely, because it messes with their civilization too.
No doubt. So it's been said that General Byrd has been to Agartha. What does your research tell you?
Yeah, that was where he was flying over. He found the tunnel and he never could make it back.
Right.
I don't know. It makes me scratch my head. I think it's interesting. I think it's a fascinating story that he found that entrance, that he was there. but the fact that nobody's been able to find that again or recreate that, and I don't know. I'm an open-minded skeptic. I think it's a fascinating tale, but I want to see more. I want to see something come of it. And the
Sure.
thing that really kind of throws me off, though, is Admiral Byrd's story correlates more with the entire hollow Earth, the inner sun theory, which doesn't quite hold up anymore. But if he did find an entrance in the North Pole area, that would be one. But if we have the pockets all over the place, the honeycomb Earth, that's where we start finding entrances in Tibet, in the Gobi Desert, in South
That
America.
actually makes more sense, the honeycomb Earth.
Yeah. So I think Admiral Byrd is a good starting place, but it's just not enough data, not enough information to follow through. I mean, it might be completely credible. It's just not enough that we have a follow-up to it and to better understand what he experienced.
What's your opinion on this one, Kaedrich? So you know how we're all like waiting for like the galactics to teach us, show us, live, protect, and everything like that. It's from what I'm gathering, and again, I'm just my own interpretation, is that the inner Earth, maybe the Lemurians or whoever still functioning there, seems closer to our civilization. Should we be leaning more towards trying to figure them out versus the galactic? Is this a sleight of hand trick, if you would, to say, look way above here when the answer is really right there in any possibility?
I like that. I'm a proponent of embrace it all, because I think if these Agarthans are like the fifth density entities, are definitely advanced civilizations, they are definitely in connection and probably a commonplace part of our interstellar visitors, let's say, so to speak. They may be part of the Galactic Federation. And I think when we make contact with one officially, because, I'm sure we're there, but, when it becomes more publicly known, that I think we're going to be in contact with all of it. I think it's an all or none kind of situation.
I think it's an all or none kind of situation.
So I'm going to get my head wrapped around, because I'm sure there's other people scratching their head on this one. They are, from your perspective, fifth density beings. Makes sense. But if they're in this honeycomb part of the Earth, and the Earth is third density, is they're fifth density beings, but are they residing in a third density structure?
Yes. Yeah, densities are a weird thing, and I've spent quite a bit of time trying to understand it. And one of the biggest problems we have as human beings in understanding densities is we want nice little quantized layers. We want them to be nice and linear, but they're not linear. They are like overlapping spectra. They just don't have a start and an end. And we can't just officially say, oh yeah, that's 4D, when really it might be like a 3D, 5D, but it's somewhere in there. Once upon a time, we used to use terms like ether reality and spiritual reality and corporeal reality. Now we're using terms like 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D. And I imagine in the next 10, 20 years, we're going to have a completely different term to try to understand it. But the answer is, it's not a linear explanation, because I don't know yet. I want to experience what they're like. I want to see what they're like and understand it, because I don't know how a fifth density being like that could exist in a third density reality.
Right.
Is there an overlap? Is there some connection? Or are we to say we really are 5D entities ourselves, existing in a 3D body, but because of our cultural conditioning, because whatever reasons, we have our 5D capacity turned off. And once we turn on our 5D capacity and we start working with that, we'll still be 3D beings in the flesh, but we'll be 5D. So again, it's like an all or nothing. I think we're all 5D connected to the 3D. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's an interesting concept.
but
It's kind of already. I like it too. I like it too, because it's kind of already happening as we are expanding our consciousness and expanding our perception and awareness. It's allowing us to raise our frequency to higher densities and then we can experience higher levels of what people would reference as a dimension, so to speak. So now that we're actually putting it together, I can kind of see how that could be. They could be fifth density living inside the earth, but in reality, maybe that inside their earth or inside their reality, they've already created a fifth dimension type of atmosphere or frequency.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
We
fascinating.
just talked that one
We
out.
just talked that one up. We just talked it out. That's how you do it, everybody. You got to talk this stuff out.
Talk it out.
You just have
Well,
got
this is something I've been working on for a while. I'm actually putting together a bit of an ebook that's going to be out really soon. It'll be a free ebook. Right now, it's like 45 pages long for an ebook that talks about how you can unlock your multidimensional self. And that
Cool.
comes into an awareness of what it means to be 3D, 4D, 5D. And I give a couple of techniques to start to be able to manifest using that. And then I'm going to be creating an 8-week course, which is shadow work based. So it means we get into the 3D nature of our world. We start addressing our 3D limitations and give that the voice and the energy that it needs, so we can move that out of the way, recognize our 5D nature, and start to connect. And then when we start doing that more en masse, we'll have a better understanding of what it means to be a 5D being in the 3D body, because one person here or there is not a good representative example of the whole. It just gives us like, ooh, look, they're doing this. Oh, look, they're doing that. They're doing that. But what would it be like to see an entire culture where 5D existence is reinforced? Like here in our world, 5D existence is not reinforced whatsoever. Our 3D existence is constantly reinforced over and over again. 5D gets shut down, it gets shot down, poo-pooed, laughed, turned away. And when you start to use your abilities, we start to question, like, am I going crazy, or is this really turning on? So it would be great to see an entire society of people that reinforce 5D, so that we stop questioning and we get constant validation of the truth of it. And we can see something in a completely different way. I want to see what that world looks like. I don't know what that looks like yet.
I hope we're
I
all going to
love
be
it.
living through it. That would be extraordinary.
You should do an audio book, man. You got a great voice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So okay, so when we go to try to connect with these people, whether it be your thing is to connect with the galactics or the inner earth, like how the ancient traditions connected through rituals, and what is it, if you got a shot from your experience of connecting with these things, because like you said, people have traveled to Antarctica, they're flying over this place, that place, trying to go there. Would it be easier on everybody if they just learned how to do rituals like we studied in the past, and they could connect that way versus all this very labor intensive, quite frankly, and deadly in many cases, ways of really connecting? What's your thoughts on that?
Costly.
Costly, yeah.
In fact, there's little hints on exactly how we can do that. Little tiny hints if we put them together. When we talk about the Agarthans going underground, when we look to the Hindu concept, we see in the Hindu belief, the Vedic belief, that there are two sorts of deities. There's the Devas, which are like, Shiva, Shakti, Kali, all of these guys. But then there's the Asuras, which were more of the rebellious type. They were, kicked out. They were doomed to roam the earth. And in the Hindu tradition, they tell us that Agartha is populated by the Asuras. In other traditions, we hear that the Agarthans are the Nagas, the serpent people. Again, not reptilian, malevolent, but higher minded, because, in ancient cultures, a serpent was a symbol of wisdom and knowledge and understanding. It wasn't turned into an evil symbol until Christianity came along. I hate to say it that way, but it was a symbol of wisdom. And they may not have literally been serpents, but just a symbol representing wise beings. Now, if we follow this concept of the Asuras were kicked out, roaming the earth, going through and teaching what they need to teach, and they did. They roamed the planet teaching. And we look to these teachings and these teachers, there's one specific one that sticks out, that pops up all over the place. And we see his teachings all over the world in very similar ways. We got Thoth the Atlantean, Hermes Trismegistus, we've got Zoroaster. We get to the Norse tradition, it's Odin. And even in the Norse tradition, we have two different types of deities. We have the Vanir, which are like the fertility gods, the nature and abundance. Then we have the ASEA, which are like the human ones. They deal with commerce, teaching, warfare, all of those kind of human related things. The root word for ASEA is the same root word for asuras. They're the same beings and the same stories of these entities roaming all over the earth, teaching what they need to teach. And fascinatingly enough, when we go to even South America, we hear the tales of Viracocha, who looks exactly like Thoth, who looks exactly like Zoroaster, like Odin, all of these same characters teaching the same thing. So I think if we were to start to tune into these teachings of this master that roamed the earth, who wherever he went amassed a group of people that he taught. You know, when we with Horus, we got the Shemsu Horus, the followers of Horus. We've got in the Norse the Dr, which were trained by Odin. But when we look and we follow the teachings of this being that roamed the planet, and we start to uncover what was really being taught and how we put it into a practical use, that's where we start to kick in our abilities. It's the rituals, it's the daily process. And
I
I don't
agree with
necessarily
that.
mean ritual by ceremony. I mean, how do you make your life a prayer? What are the sacred actions that you take in the day-to-day world, not just in this ritual chamber, but sacred actions in the day-to-day world? And how do they align with the teachings of this person? And I think that's where we start to tune into that message of Agartha.
What does Kaedrich do to unlock theirs every day?
Aha, good question. I teach, I read, I question, I test and validate all the time. I'm an open-minded skeptic. So I get something new. I'm like, let's look into that. Let's
Which
find
is
out what
really
that's all
good.
about.
That's, I think, what keeps you very balanced.
Exactly. And being part of the Norse tradition, I still follow the Norse path quite a bit. I teach it. I look to Odin as that inspiration source to me, because Odin is this Asura that's connected to Agartha. And I look to his teachings. There's an old poem called the Havamal, which is like the sacred teachings of Odin. And I look to the character of Odin as a mythological construct, as an archetype, let's say a personality archetype. And when I think about what Odin would do in these situations, what would he think? How would he act in that way? I try to emulate that in a very honorable and a very beneficial way. And in that way, there's a phrase out of the Old Norse, "Sjálfur sjálfa mer," the self to the self. It's basically the sacrifice of the self to the self. And remember, sacrifice means to make sacred. So you make your own sacred self holy, so your life becomes a prayer. And that's what I do, is I try to make every action a sacred action reflecting of Odin's wisdom. I try to make everything I do. I mean, I stumble, I fall, I'm a human being. I have bad days. I don't know. I'm not always perfect about it, but I take those moments and learn from them. I do my shadow work and I grow from it. And that's how I make myself connected in that way.
Get there. Hey, let me ask you this. Do you think that tagging on the ritual part just a second, a little bit more on that one, can you, when someone does a ritual or prayer or whatever they associate it to, can they inadvertently summon the dark force, or is it all intent? Is it the intent behind it, or can they accidentally open up something like, oh no? But if they, you know what I mean?
I love that question, because
Can I tag on that real quick?
Yeah.
Because it'll come in line, I think. Also, what if you mispronounce the name? There's so much going on right now. Is it Jesus? Is it Yeshua? Is it
Yahweh?
So how much does that also play into that?
I love that. That's exactly it. Is we keep hearing words have power, and they do, but it's the power that we give those words. And so when we get into ritual, and I'll use the example of a Ouija board, for example, as an example, because the Ouija board scares the heck out of a lot of people. And to me, it's just a piece of wood with decorations on it. And so if you go see these TikTok videos, these YouTube videos of people having bad experiences, you watch like the paranormal investigator TV shows of having bad experiences, and then you sit down with the Ouija board, you're going to be scared to death. And you're going to have a bad experience, and you're going to show that people are correct. So my first rule of interacting with the paranormal is similarities attract and perpetuate. whatever your state of mind is, whatever your state of being is, you're going to draw that to you. So if you're afraid, if you're fearful, you're doing a great job. You're doing it beautifully. But if you set sacred space internally, you set sacred space externally, you get your intention set to a higher mind, you're going to draw in that kind of a being. And to answer the question about how we mispronounce things and that sort of thing, that's one of the things I'm having people understand, is that there are layers to our manifestation. There are the words that we speak that mean one thing, like, hey, I want more money. Underneath those words is our intention. Well, I want to buy more things, or I need to pay bills, whatever that intention is. And underneath that is our alignment. Our alignment is like a scarcity, like, oh crap, I don't have enough money, I can't do this. Or great, this is good, I have a solid foundation to build off of, and now I want to grow. That's our alignment underneath there. Whatever words we use, or the words we use, I want more money. But the universe hears that alignment. And the universe will feed back to you that alignment. So if you're in a scarce state and you're having scarcity going on, the universe is like, great, that's what you want, here you go. Here's more scarcity for you. Or if you've got this abundant state and you want to grow, the universe goes, great, I hear that. So how does that work with entities? I've developed, in my Black Mirror courses, I've developed something I call agnostic evocation. Not agnostic, but agnostic.
That's interesting.
Agnostic means we don't have the words to properly convey
That's
a
really
sacred
good.
experience. We don't, it's an ineffable experience, and we don't have the linear concepts to put that out there. To that effect, I'm just going to throw this one out here. Let's get everybody scared a little bit. Let's say we get 5 people in the room and we say, okay, great, we're going to conjure Lucifer.
Right.
You're going to get 5 different entities in that room, because Lucifer
Right.
means 5 different things to each. It means something different to those people. But if we throw the words away, we get rid of the words completely, and we say, hey, I want an entity that matches this. I want to learn about nonlinear time. So I want to think about what nonlinear time means to me. What would an entity that is wise, that can communicate well with me, who cares what its name is? I just want to connect with nonlinear time and something that can communicate nonlinear time to me. You align that, remember those 3 layers, you align with that feeling of nonlinear time, communicating entity, and then you open your ceremony and do that work. Now you're going to have a beautiful connection, and you won't make any mistakes.
Right.
Father wisdom, everybody. And you have just seen it first, this breakout on Spiritually Raw.
I love it.
You're
that
awesome, bro.
Makes so much
No, that totally makes sense.
logical.
Hey, that's the things, man. People always try to bamboozle people with spiritual words and all this stuff, and it's just like, oh my God, it's just a mind screw. So, but getting back to very pragmatically, like you broke it down. All right, so your links are always going to be in the description below on this show and all the other ones too. Is there anything you would like before people reach out to you, for them to be more prepared, if you would, so when they do connect with you, whether it be for sessions or learning more about your works, or to have a real successful conversation with you?
Yeah, actually, it's a great question, because if you do go to my webpage, kaedrich.com, right now, the first thing that you're going to encounter is a paranormal awareness test, where you click the link and you're going to get a video which will walk you through various activities so that you can determine what your degree of paranormal awareness is. And at the end of the video, I've even got like a little bit of a list of what the levels are, so you can understand your paranormal awareness, what your abilities are. And by going through that and experimenting with those things, it will actually activate more of your abilities than you may have realized that you had. It'll tune you in better, so that if you do that before we talk, we're going to already be connected. We already have that connection together. You'll already be awakened, aware. And I'll let you know, every time I do a one-on-one session, I'm calling in my guides, I'm calling in your guides, not yours specifically, but the client's guides in, so that I've got this whole connection. And it's kind of fun, because I'm having like 3 or 4 conversations constantly, like with a client and with their guides and my guides. And then suddenly the client tunes in and they get communication from their guides, they're getting downloads, and we're having like this big, like 4 or 5-way communications going on. It's kind of fun, and that helps to do that paranormal awareness test, to activate and be aware of that.
Very cool. Very cool.
Fantastic.
Links will be in the description below, everybody. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Father Wisdom. We appreciate your knowledge. And mostly appreciate you're very pragmatic and you're very logical and you're very balanced, and the world needs more balance. That is what's from my perspective, is going to really help elevate everyone's consciousness and expand their awareness. So thank you for that.
You're so welcome. And thank you too very much. I really appreciate all of this.
Oh,
Yeah,
likewise. And together with your help, we are turning the universal key to global harmony and creating a unified world. Thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, tune in often, tell all your friends, and most importantly, may all your dreams come true. Many blessings.